Joining me, Houston Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. Congresswoman, welcome back to Houston's Morning News. You know what I've noticed? I've noticed that you always have a really good seat when joint sessions of Congress get together. You're right there on the aisle, get to shake the president's hand. How do you do that?
Well, first of all, you get a lot of work done when you're on the aisle. There's a variety of cabinet officers that come through, and of course the president, and I do it because it's important to communicate as well to your constituents back home. You just work hard and make sure that you were able to be there. This time, of course, I've sat with a colleague, a Republican colleague from Hudson Valley, New York.
Congresswoman, whenever I go to Washington, I'm going to try and get your seat if I can. Now, listen, let me play something from the president last night, and I want to get your thoughts on this. Take a listen.
We need a tax code where everyone gets a fair shake and where everybody pays their fair share.
Congresswoman, on that, I agree with the president. What I'd really like to see when he says fair shake and pay their fair share, how about the 47% that aren't paying any taxes in this country? Is he talking about them, or is he just talking about the rich people?
I think he's talking about a whole reform of the entire system. Now, there is a type of tax called earned income tax, and obviously those individuals have paid taxes and they get a refund, and they're not at the high end of the income level. But I believe that
we should probably get rid of that, though. Don't you think we should get rid of that earned income? I mean, if we're going to start closing these loopholes, isn't that one we should get rid of?
Absolutely not. Those individuals have paid taxes. They're at the low end of the income level, and I believe that they're contributing to society, and I think we're contributing to their survival by the earned income tax credit. I think if you talk to corporations, you talk to people of means, many of them indicate that they are willing to see tax loopholes closed. I think the president did a great job last night in talking about the immediacy of the need for jobs, and particularly announcing the public transit project for Houston that many have been waiting for and I've worked on for some 20 years. That was a great monumental statement that the Houston Public Transit would provide funding but also provide jobs.
Congresswoman,
money that have already been allotted.
The only problem is that is already out of money, and they got to go back and they got to ask for more money, and we don't have the money to pay for things that we already have now. And that's my next.
We're not out of money. The New Starts program does have funding. It's a question of how.
Well, the country's $14 trillion upside down, Congresswoman.
But you know what the mistake is? Whenever you all talk about deficit, or people do talk about deficit, the country is not broke. We do have a concern about the deficit, and no one in Congress is unmindful of it. I want, as much as anyone else, to reduce that deficit, but Abraham Lincoln, when he was in the middle of the Civil War, realized that as you have to face that pending crisis, you also have to invest in this country and invest in its people.
All right, Congresswoman, I need to good points being made. Let me just ask you to hang on. I want to ask you a little bit more about how we're going to pay for this jobs bill.
Back to the information and conversation with Matt. This is your Houston Morning News.
KTRH News Time is 6:23, and joining us is Houston Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. And Congresswoman, I thank you for your time this morning. Let me play one more thing from the president's speech last night. Take a listen.
There should be nothing controversial about this piece of legislation. Everything in here is the kind of proposal that's been supported by both Democrats and Republicans, including many who sit here tonight. And everything in this bill will be paid for. Everything.
Mm-hmm. The problem I have with this, Congresswoman, is, first of all, he's suggesting tax increases, which most Republicans are dead set against, and you know that as well as anybody, so they haven't agreed on this. The other thing is we're getting this speech in 2 installments. We don't know how he plans on paying for this and won't know for another couple of weeks. I've never known a president, Congresswoman, to give a speech in 2 installments. Why is that?
Well, that's a thoughtful process. The president wants to present Monday after next a thoughtful, even-handed approach to how it will be paid for. He's asked the
why not do it all at the same time?
An additional. Well, I think it's important for the American people to hear the plan and to be comfortable in how that plan is going to be paid for. But the tax
But he hasn't told us how he's going to pay for it yet.
Have been tax cuts that have been agreed to by both Republicans and Democrats, but they're constructive tax cuts. To be able to boost our small businesses, that's important. Many Houstonians who have businesses will welcome that kind of relief. Payroll tax relief, many will welcome that kind of relief. soldiers who are coming back. I think it was an important point to say they fight in Iraq and Afghanistan. They shouldn't have to fight for a job.
No,
and I think it's very important that
I think you and I agree that the
infrastructure,
that the men and women that have fought for this country certainly deserve an opportunity to come home to a job. There's no question. Infrastructure, Congresswoman, that makes my eyes glaze over whenever I hear that word. We've tried the infrastructure thing. We've tried the stimulus thing. I would like to ask you to come back. I've kind of run out of time this morning, but if you would be kind enough to come back after he unveils how he's going to pay for it, because I think you and I could have a great conversation as to what we think of that plan, but we won't know that for a couple of weeks. Would you come back?
I'd love to.
All right.
I truly believe you could be convinced, particularly when you hear from members of Congress whose entire cities and their districts have been wiped away by Hurricane Irene and, of course, Lee. These are places where infrastructure in America is desperately needed. People can be put to work.
All right,
Congresswoman. Kind of American spirit the president was talking about last night.
I look forward to having you back. Thank you so much for joining us. Houston Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee